Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today is going to be more of like a technique or a tackle Tuesday. I'm going to share with y'all the basics behind locating and finding wintertime catfish. A lot of people are intimidated by wintertime catfishing, and a lot of people just go over to hunting and deer hunting, and they completely put the boats up. They put the rods up until spring comes back around. And actually, if y'all didn't know, wintertime is probably the best time to catch not only big catfish, but to catch more numbers of catfish. What happens biologically with catfish in the wintertime is they try their best to find warm water. So if you don't know a lot about the biology of lakes and streams and wherever you're fishing, the deeper the water, especially in the wintertime, there's pockets of warmth found in deep water, or what we call holes. And a lot of times, many species of fish will go to these holes. So what happens is in the wintertime, all these fish kind of bunch up in similar spots. So it becomes a little bit easier to locate the fish as long as you can find out where these holes are. I'm just going to explain some basic concepts in places where you can find holes. And not all of us have fish finders, so it's kind of hard to find and locate holes. But your best friend's going to be websites like Navionics, and it's going to be topographic maps to where you can actually look at different structures on the topographic map and be able to identify where the holes are and your best locations to finding these fish. So just to get started, basically a hole, if y'all didn't know, is just anywhere where there's just a little hole on the bottom of a lake. So normally, let's just say the lake is 15 foot deep. This hole that kind of just droops down like a half dome shape will go down anywhere from 20 to maybe even 25 foot. They're not really big drop-offs or drop points like a ledge, but you can see them. You can see them on topographic maps, and you can see them on your fish finder. And what happens is that extra 5 to 10 foot, 5 to 10 foot depth change is enough to keep those fish a little bit warmer. So holes is probably the number one thing that I look for, especially when I'm catfishing in the wintertime, because catfish always hold to the holes, and if you can find them, you'll be right on top of them for the most part. Now, another place, if you don't have a fish finder that you can find a hole, is at the mouth or an entrance of a creek or a river. A lot of times, if this is your main body of water and this is the creek running into it, a lot of times these holes will form at the mouths of these creeks. And the reason why the mouths and the rivers of the creeks are very good, especially if you can find a hole there, is because if you can find a hole or a deep water structure that the fish are holding on to, but is also surrounded by maybe shallower water, like a shallow flat, these are the number one spots you want to head to, because the number one thing that you should be chasing or looking for when you're catfishing in the wintertime is not the bait fish as much, but it's the warmer water. Biologically, these fish are looking for warm water. So if you can say it's 30 degrees all week long, and then you get 1 or 2 days in there where the sun is beating hard, you can find a couple. You might be able to find a couple different areas on your particular body of water that are, anywhere from 2 to 3 to maybe even 10 degrees warmer. Now, 2 or 3 degrees doesn't seem like a lot, but biologically speaking, for the fish, this is a huge difference. So if you have fish that are at the very bottom of a hole, and it's very cold, and they're all bunched up, and they're not moving much, they're not very active, and you get some sun beating down, these fish, they may not necessarily move completely out of the hole to the shallow flats, but what will happen is, if this is your hole and they're all at the bottom of this hole, a lot of these fish, if there's a change in temperature, they'll start moving to the upper 2/3 of this hole. So they'll start, suspending a little bit over the hole, or they might come a little bit out here. So that's also something that you need to keep in mind when fishing in the wintertime. Now, my favorite particular spot, and a lot of people know, but if you're fishing a creek or a river and there's a bend in that creek or river, almost all the time there will be a hole formed. And the reason that is because these arrows indicate the current and which way it's flowing and which way it's going. This current will constantly be beating on this bank because it won't go completely through. So it will beat on this bank and it will actually wedge out a little hole. And this is another great spot. It's very, especially if you're a bank fisherman and you're trying to catch some of these big river catfish, you can actually, if you can get access to the bends of the river, a lot of times you will find holes there. And also a lot of the other times you will find different types of structure there. Giant trees, logs that have all bunched up over the many years that current's been pushing things to that bank. So that's another good spot that you can look for that you necessarily don't need a fish finder. And this brings up another kind of topic of finding fish. If you look at your banks and you got really, really steep banks, that's another sign that there's deep water there. And if you can find deep water, you can get you get yourself better chances or get yourself closer to finding fish. Next, if you have access to a topographic map, which everybody should have access to, it's free online, or you can buy books, or if you have a boat with the fish finder. Another popular spot, especially with catfish anglers, is ledges. So if you don't know what a ledge is if you got just a basic bottom, let's just say that's 12 foot deep, 15 foot deep, and then you got a very, very steep drop off, like almost immediate within 5 or 10 foot, it goes down to, let's say, 30 or 40 feet. A lot of times then fish will hang on this ledge. And that's another spot that a lot of wintertime catfish will go to. I know Green River Lake, where I'm around, there's a big ledge in the middle of that lake near the dam, and that's where a lot of these channel cats are being caught at right now, because Green River Lake necessarily doesn't have a lot of holes, and it's kind of hard to find holes, especially on the bank, because it's more of a steady drop-off lake, or it just has really steep banks. So a lot of times I will rely on fishing the ledges. Lastly, creek channels, especially in lakes. A lot of your creek channels that you can see on the topographic maps, a lot of those creek channels will have holes within the creek channel. So that's another good spot to look. Other than that, as far as baiting goes and actually fishing, there's a couple of tips that I always use when wintertime catfishing that I always try to remind myself of before I even get out in the water. So the first tip is warm water. Find the warm water. If it's warm weather outside, or if you had a couple of warm days, keep that in mind, because you should be fishing shallow. I know a lot of catfish anglers fish shallow in tournaments, as shallow as 4 foot deep, and have caught fish well over 100 pounds in tournaments before. So don't be afraid to go shallow. If it's really, really warm, go shallow. Number 2 is what I call a 15 to 30 minute tops rule. So when you're trying to find and locate these fish initially, if you don't get a bite within 15, 20, 30 minutes, you need to pack up and leave. Now this can be especially hard if you're a bank fisherman, but once you find that spot, a lot of them fish will stay in that same spot all winter long. So if you can spend a week finding 3 or 4 spots that fish are holding on to all winter long, you should be able to go back to those spots and catch fish. Other than that, you need to be fishing cut bait, and that'd be my last piece of advice. live bait does not work very well, not only for me, but I've done a lot of research and looked up a lot of articles on catfish and anglers, professional catfish anglers. Cut bait's the way to go. I would also put out a smorgasbord, basically smaller pieces of cut bait. I would try medium, large pieces. My favorite bait around here is cut shad because that's the native fish around here. So cut shad, cut skipjack. I know some lakes, cut bluegill. But anything, frozen cut bait or fresh cut bait is best for that. As far as rods and reels, I could go on all day about these tips. But overall, I just wanted to give y'all some ideas and some concepts of where to find these fish and how to go about finding these fish. It's always, a step-by-step progression. If y'all enjoyed today's quick tip, it's not, it's already 11 minutes in, but hopefully y'all enjoyed today's tip video. If you like it and if you want more of these kind of videos where I just sit down and try to explain something to y'all, please put in the comment section below. Other than that, please rate, comment, and subscribe. Every subscription helps us, guys, and we appreciate all of our subscribers so much. Other than that, have a great day, guys, and see you on the water.